You remember.
Roll your stealth roll.
Game books, pencils, pizza, cheese puffs, and a hell of a lot of dice.
And the dragon woke up.
Roll for initiative. This is the Roll for Initiative podcast, where 1E is the place to be.
This is the Roll for Initiative podcast. We are in Volume 5, Issue 167. I am Vince, sitting alongside Matt.
Hello, everyone.
And Nick.
Hey, folks. Hello.
And bringing on permanently as a host, DM Sal.
Guten Tag.
Yes,
Oh,
German
great.
Sal.
Like
yes.
that?
Hear that? We're in Wolfenstein.
Yes, Wolfenstein.
Guten Tag.
Yeah. Anyway, so it's been a while since we did a full cast show. I mean, people have been doing things, and you've heard Sal and I do our mini shows for a little while where we're waiting for the rest of the cast to get back together. As someone is hooking up their iPhone, I can hear in the background there. Sal.
It's fine.
That's not me.
It wasn't. It was me.
Okay, fine.
Sorry.
I automatically just blame Sal for everything because he's the scapegoat. Anyway, so Nick, what have you been up to?
We just had our monthly game night last night on Saturdays. I ran the Land of a Thousand Towers campaign. It went okay. It was fun. They fought off some demonic wood golems that looked like garden gnomes. Mm-hmm. And let's see what else. And that was probably the really big battle of the night. Oh, and fighting these creatures called Screech Men, which are albino, eyeless humanoids who they find their prey by echolocation. So that was really horrific because I had a really nasty looking picture I found somewhere on the internet of a creature that looked almost exactly what I needed. And everybody was like, oh, that's not good. So yeah, they fought those off. It was pretty cool. So they actually got to they're actually getting into the first level of the dungeon. So that's pretty cool. Next month, we're going to go back to playing our Star Wars D6 campaign, which I'm really looking forward to.
Cool.
So yeah, that's pretty much on the gaming front on my side.
And Matt?
Well, I went to Gen Con. It was good times. Packed.
What is this Gen Con you speak of?
Yeah, really.
Yeah, it's basically a once-a-year gathering of nerds in Indianapolis.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's good. With a lot of food trucks.
Yeah.
Yes, they shut down one street and align it with food trucks during Gen Con.
Nothing beats a burrito from a gut truck, does it?
Oh,
Yeah.
awesome.
Oh yeah. Picked up some board games at Gen Con. I picked up this one Fairy Tale Games Battle Royal. Basically, the game it's like the Hunger Games if you took fairy tale characters and put
Like
them in
Little
the
Bo
Hunger
Peep
Games.
fighting Little Red Riding Hood?
Yes.
No.
It actually is that. It actually gets better than that because they went all over the place with their characters. They're coming up with a real world version so you can be Rasputin and have Rasputin fighting Snow White, who's battling Grendel. I mean, it's really nuts.
And then Nicolas Cage.
Yes. But I fully recommend the game. It's horribly fun. It was one they made off Kickstarter.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was like their pre-release sale. And apparently, I would link their website, but apparently they need to renew their domain name. Because it expired 4 days ago of this recording.
Quick.
As long as the picture they have that description of Little Red Riding Hood looks like Ronda Rousey, I'm totally on board with this.
Yes. Well, the Red has like a very sharp knife. Snow White's like a dual wielding. It's art wise is more violent, probably closer to the original fairy tales than the Disney version. Because you also can be like Captain Hook. They have villains
sweet.
too. They have the Wizard of Oz. So Dorothy, the Lion, all of that. You battle the Wicked Witches of the East and West. No, actually, you can be the Wicked Witch from the East, but the West is one of the big bads. that you fight. The three little pigs are a boss monster you can come across. And the game board is actually a deck of cards. So you all start in an inn, and then you just go out and exploring, and you lay over the top card from the location deck, and you make the map that way as you explore.
Oh, okay. It's almost kind of like the game Zombies in a way.
Right.
When you start off in the center of town and the game board is different each time with a different card drawn.
Yeah, you place it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
so-
Okay. Cool.
And then you'll come across things like the Emerald Cat Palace from Wizard of Oz, or the Hedge Maze from Alice in Wonderland. All these iconic fairy tale locations.
Iconic, and if you think about it, quite frightening locations.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like Mulan's in it as well, and you can go and get Mulan's sword. You can find these equipment. They're also adding Arthurian lore to it, so Merlin, King Arthur, Sir Lancelot will be in this game. I mean, Sherlock Holmes is going to be in one of the expansions.
Cool.
So from an IP standpoint, it's really entertaining, and the game's kind of fun, albeit the rules as written are a little wonky because they really could have used an editor.
Oh, well.
That's what Board Game Geek is for, though. The creator posts lots of clarifications there. Outside of that, I picked up Avalon Hill's Speed Circuit because I collect my old Avalon Hill board games, and got a couple other war games, a Napoleonic war game, and then I got a Germans, Russians, Eastern Front World War II game. And then also came back from Gen Con with a fiance.
Yeah.
They sell those there?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
Well-
They actually do now.
Yes,
Does
they
that
do.
have anything to do with the Russian thing? Like it's like a Meryl Bride from
See,
Russia?
I would have waited. if I knew that.
Yeah. Unfortunate. Yeah. You can get anything at Gen Con. And
Apparently, man.
Apparently, Matt-
I didn't see any of that stuff.
Matt went into the vendor room and bought 1 for 2, and
Walked out with a fiance.
he walked out with a fiance. He just threw the other 2 away. Excuse me.
So, yes,
I was going to say,
If
is
you
as long
buy a
as you
game
can go to
about
that-
Russian you buy a game about the Eastern European campaign, you get Russian Bride.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
it was part of the auction package. Because that's where I get all the good deals. And actually, pretty much everything I bought was actually from the auction store outside of the Fairy Tales game.
And we all must know that Matt's fiance is not in the room because he would not be talking like this right now.
She is actually in the other room and can hear me.
So you will be dead after this show.
Fortunately, she's getting ready to leave for her mother's.
Yeah, I was going to say, if she's like a real fiance, she's ignoring him.
No, actually, I just heard her say, when I said fortunately, she was like, fortunately?
Yeah, you're dead.
Yeah, I'm going to be
Doomed.
cowed in to kiss her.
Yep.
Oh, well. Anyway.
What about you, Vince?
Oh, I miss you. It's not fortunate you're leaving.
Oh, here we go.
I love you.
Oh,
Oh, Nick.
keep
Remember back,
talking. You might get enough words out to redeem all the crap you've already said.
remember when we were like that, Nick? I mean,
Yeah, well, still is. Anyway, Vince.
oh, that's right. Mrs. Nick runs the show over there.
Yeah.
Nothing really much going on here. I've been just planning games and trying to find a way to start another game up locally, but I don't know what's going on. There's not a lot of people in the area willing to play right now, so.
Well, didn't you go to North Texas RPG Con?
Back in June, and we did discuss that on the last show.
Yeah, that's what I was just making sure. We did talk about that, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
That wasn't just me thinking we had that discussion, right?
Yes.
No, I mean, we don't give like an in-depth review like Save or Die does, and they like give every like waking moment from, North Texas. I mean, North Texas is cool, but I'm not going to
Yeah.
spend an entire show describing, where I went and where I took a dump there, so.
I think you should.
Sure, Sal. Why don't you lead that show next time? So since
No.
you want the final word, Sal, what have you been doing?
What have I been doing? I've been working on trying to get people for Roll20 to just get people together. I have, friends of mine who everybody just posted, "Oh, I want a game. I said, "Well, been wanting to run stuff," and they're like, "Okay." So everybody's looking into D20. I don't understand what they're looking into, but they're looking into it.
You mean the website, not the game D20, right?
Roll20. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
My apologies. And personally, I have been, aside from working on a campaign, I have been playing a lot of Magic.
Really?
Yeah. I used to play back in the day. First edition, I was hardcore into it. After, I think up to, let's see, I'm trying to think. After Ice Age, I stopped.
Oh,
me too.
Homelands.
Yeah, I was done. And then I kind of got back into it because I've been reading the lore.
Mm-hmm.
I was dumb, and I went back and I started reading, some Innistrad stuff, and I started reading the Khans and the Dragons of Tarkir for the recent stuff, and then the Zendrazi and
Yeah.
the Eldrazi, Rise of the Eldrazi, which I absolutely love. All the backstory and everything else. So I've been playing Magic. I started out with okay, let me just pick up a deck, and I started playing, and I was like, okay, and then I had boxes of cards here that I was like, let me go through them. So now I got a friend who was like, oh, I just started playing again too. I'm like, oh, and it just happened to work out that way. So now I've been playing with him, and it's been we've been playing Commander decks. So the rules. One of the things that drove me away was going to a local gaming store and getting beat by 12-year-olds in 4 rounds.
That
And
calls you every
then being
curse
like,
word
you
in the
need to
book.
get a better deck. And you're like, you need to die and get away from me.
That probably cursed at you with every word possible.
Oh, every other word was a cuss word. But yeah, so it was. I started playing it. I'm having a lot of fun with it, and that's the thing. I'm not following. I'm probably breaking every one of Wizards' tournament rules or whatever else. But I'm not looking to get into tournaments or anything like that. And we're just playing little games here and there, and it's been a lot of fun. And the lore has been a huge vault for me to steal ideas from. So I've been doing that.
How super.
It is super. It's been a lot of fun.
Okay, cool. So let's head into it. Nick, we said you had some reviews on iTunes?
Yeah, we do have a new review on iTunes, and to remind everybody, just head on to iTunes. You go to the iTunes store, type in Roll for Initiative on your search, and navigate your way to ratings and reviews, and going to drop us a review of the show or several shows that you've listened to. And right now we're at 197 reviews. We're almost at 200. So
We're so close.
so close to 200, and our average rating is 5 stars. So doing great. I guess we must be doing something right.
Well, I mean, we were in the top 15 at one point for iTunes display,
Yeah.
so
So our
we broke
latest
our website.
our latest review is from Mechanic of Xanadu.
Whoa.
What?
And Mechanic of Xanadu gives us a 5 stars and says should be mandatory. Says
Okay.
any gamer should be listening to this podcast. The basic genome of nearly every RPG was created, and with the early editions of D&D, and is covered here in an informative and outright fun manner. The hosts sound like guys I want in my gaming group. Well done. EMJ.
What was that, Sal?
Thanks, Sal, for the review. No. But no, thank you very much. Yes, and it should be mandatory for every gamer to listen to. So go now, just now.
We'll
Go
wait.
now.
We'll wait.
Yeah, we'll wait. Go ahead and pause.
Okay, we're
But,
back. Did you listen to all the shows?
No.
Great. Yeah, how many? 160 some shows?
Plus all the specials and the mini inserts and everything like that. There's probably close to 300 shows, I would think.
Probably, yeah. But yeah, thanks for the review. So yeah, we try. We do our best.
We do our best.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's super.
Yes, the show has changed and evolved over the years. So what you hear in the beginning may not be hearing what you're hearing in the last few episodes. So, opinions and attitudes change throughout time, as well as hosts, as you can tell. As, Jason no longer sits in that other chair there.
Yeah.
And we have a Sal sitting there.
Mm.
Right, Sal?
Yeah. It's more of a hunched squat.
On squad. Yeah, Sal is our new mascot for the show.
Like the show's gargoyle. It's fine.
The show's gargoyle. Hey, they have lots of hit dice. They're really hard.
Exactly.
Anyway, let's head into some sage advice.
Sage advice.
So, Sage Advice, we have some emails here and a voicemail. If you'd like to send in your email, send it to rfistaff@gmail.com or hit us up at 570-865-4210, the hotline, where you can leave a message and tell us what you want to tell us. We do have one voicemail coming in from Angelic Doctors from the forums. Raul, we'll listen to him right now.
Hello, this is DM Raul calling about the Roll for Initiative podcast, the Zero Equals Death episode. Just want to say I really enjoyed it. You highlighted many of the aspects of modern gaming that are quite deficient, and I love that you did it without bashing it, but that you did it in a way to explain it as an opportunity for some even greater role-playing and creativity. Kudos to you both, Vince and Sal. And yeah, whenever I play Advanced Dungeons and Dragons at the first edition, I pretty much am one of those who play it by the book. I figure if I'm going to play this magnificent game, I'm going to play it the way that Mr. Gygax wrote it. And I just love doing that, and I love that it forces me to become creative if I want to spare the players' lives. Yeah, I've got to come up with some pretty good reasons to figure out how that happened. And it just becomes a wonderful experience for us all. So thanks to you both. Keep these shows coming. I'm getting a lot out of them. I'm not currently playing AD&D, but when I do, I'm going to be looking back at these episodes and pulling all the data I can from them to make sure that the experience is the best one that I can provide my players. Thank you again. Bye-bye.
So yeah, that was one of the mini episodes Sal and I did, Zero Equals Death episode. And I believe we had a lot of fun on that one, Sal, right?
Yeah. Well, he kind of threw me off, and he was like, you guys didn't bash. And I'm like, oh, well, I guess I wasn't on that episode.
Yeah. No. You were physically there. I know that. Yeah, we talked about how, Zero Equals Death in most campaigns by the book rules and what ways you can adjust it and what happens when you don't. So if you want to take a listen to that, that was mini issue number, I think, 6 or 5, one of the two. Enjoy listening to that one. It was about a quick 20-minute show of us going over options and role-playing methods and why you should do this or that, and you take away what you want from that episode. Pretty simple. Anyway, so we got some emails here. As I open up the email bag, I've pulled out 2 emails here for us. The first one comes in from Matteo, who hails from Italy. And I believe he says he's an Italian DM, so I'm assuming he's from Italy. He could be from somewhere else.
Boopity-boppity.
Yeah, boopity-boppity-boo, yeah. As the Family Guy would say. I'm an Italian DM, and I'd love to hear your opinions on the module I'm currently running, T1, The Village of Hamlet. Please, 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 please. Have a nice day. Your podcast is awesome.
You gotta say please.
Please. Didn't we do a show on Hamlet?
A long time ago.
Yeah.
I think we did. It might have been in conjunction with Temple of Elemental Evil, or was that how it went?
I don't think we did Evil, but I know we did Hamlet because we reviewed the module. I'm pretty sure. Matt will have to Google foo that for us and find out what episode that was for that listener while I'm pulling out the next email. So, unless anybody has any thoughts about that module right now.
I like cheese and mushrooms on my omelet.
Yeah, so we've picked up our comedian aspect in Sal, so
apparently so.
Nick, you've run that module a few times, right?
I've actually not.
Okay.
Run it at. It's been part of this, like I said, the super module Temple of Elemental Evil. Mm-hmm. So it's essentially the same thing. I do own the monochrome covered one.
Yeah, I have that too.
Of Hamlet, and if I were gonna run it alone as is, I mean, I've read through it. and my opinion, it's one of the it's a near perfect example of how to start a campaign, almost like keep on the Borderlands. So that one where it's almost like a mini campaign setting, but how to start at a low level campaign at Hamlet, the Hamlet of Hamlet.
Yeah.
It has a little bit of everything, you know. So I couldn't think of a better way to start a campaign than with that module. You could probably run that in conjunction with, Keep on the Borderlands. I know people who've done it. They kind of combined the two, and somehow made them mesh together in some fashion. So. It's very versatile. You can go anywhere with it. I know from reading in the past from other people on forums how when they've run Hamlet and they were supposed to have the second module, Temple of Elemental Evil, when that finally came out, it was a super module. But in the meantime, there was like, I want to say like a 7 or 6 year gap
Yeah.
between when Hamlet came out and Temple of Elemental Evil, and people wrote their own Temple of Elemental Evil, their version. But as far as Hamlet, I think it's like one of the more, I don't want to say basic, but it has all the elements that you need to start any sort of campaign. It has the town, it's got a nearby area to explore and clear out, and it could lead up to even more adventures after that. So,
wasn't there a Hackmaster version of the Hamlet?
Yeah.
Temple of Existential Evil.
Yeah.
So and it was renamed some other. I forget what it was, but they renamed it not Hamlet, but there was something else. It sounded entirely different. So,
okay.
Yeah, there was. I guess you can call it a Hackmaster version.
Matt, did we find anything out yet, or?
I'm battling right now with OneNote because it's not letting me search. It's anytime I search for anything, it says not found.
You're using OneNote?
Yes, that's what I keep all my notes in. OneNote.
Oh.
And for some reason, since updating to Windows 10, the search of OneNote is not working.
Aw, Matt's problems with Windows 10.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Well, at least that's better than battling with a small cat or something.
Yeah, surprisingly, they've been bothering the fiance as she's trying to get ready. They've been attacking her in her vanity.
Yeah,
and not leaving me alone for once.
Cats can be some little vicious hunters there.
Yes, the kitties are quite ferocious.
All right, well, I'll read on to the next email while you try to struggle with OneNote. This next evil mail, comes in from David. He says, "Hey guys, your podcast has inspired me to resume old school tabletop gaming after about a 30-year hiatus. I started D&D in 1975 with 3 Little Brown Books and Chainmail. I played all the usual RPGs and war games until about 85, when I stopped playing all tabletop games due to career, etc. I have recently replaced the original 1E books along with Dragon Mags and PDFs with modules. I mean, modules in PDF. Why did I read that backwards? Wow. Now I've emerged myself from my imposed exile. And I'd like to hear your opinions on what other games since 1985 I've missed out that are absolutely...
God, we could do a whole show on that.
that I have missed that are absolute must-check-out games and materials for an old grognard like myself. You've mentioned all kinds of games which sound great, but please prioritize and separate the must-haves from the nice-to-haves. Thanks, DM David." Wow. Since 1985.
Right. So I haven't watched TV since 1985. Have I missed anything?
No.
Well,
anything big happen on TV that I've missed? Prioritize that. Get back to me. Take the commercials out.
Okay, sure.
Sure. That'll only take about a month.
Oy.
Gosh, that's a tall order to.
Right?
Wow.
and then prioritize them. Okay.
Yeah, prioritize. Well, I can think of one game that probably since '85 has almost withstood the test of time. Is called Cthulhu.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, that I would say that's a must-have, not just a nice-have. That's a must-have game. I mean, what can you say? The BRP system extremely versatile, and even with the current version of seventh edition, which supposedly is coming out sometime in the not too distant future, but you can stick with six,
Absolutely.
like I am. They're all backward compatible. So you can get a scenario, an adventure from back in 1985, which I have, and you can still play it. There you go.
I'll jump in and stick with D&D, and I'll say, just for D&D purposes, anything Ravenloft, pretty much, toward the beginning of Ravenloft, which heads into second edition, the box sets. The later stuff in Ravenloft, I'd pass on it. See, I don't know what year offhand Marvel Superheroes came out. I think that was late 80s.
That was at mid-80s, 85.
Around there? Yeah. Okay, and I would definitely give 2 thumbs up for Mayfair's DC Heroes.
Okay.
Those are my...
And I know you could find, whatchamacallit, you can find...
I don't know, you tell me.
Marvel Superheroes online for free.
Oh, yeah.
They never renewed the license for it.
ClassicMarvelForever.com.
Yep, there you go.
You can download all the books, every single one of them, for free in PDF, and then print them out at your leisure.
Mm-hmm.
So enjoy that. And you can buy all the D&D PDFs at DNDClassics.com?
Yep, DNDClassics.com.
As far as DC Heroes goes, I don't know if you can buy the PDFs of those. I'm not positive. I think Paizo might have some of them. But you can get the 3rd edition or 2nd edition pretty decent priced online on Amazon. You can definitely get Batman the role-playing game that was like 1st edition / 2nd edition role-playing for very cheap. I mean, you can buy that book for under $10. I mean, if you just want a quick start, street level type, Batman versus blah, blah, blah versus, Arrow or say Green Arrow or Flash, things like that level.
Right. Yeah, because they did the DC Heroes was the Mayfair one, and then there was the DC Universe that used a wacky die system.
No.
Yeah.
No.
That was West End.
Yeah, it was the Superman, Wonder Woman, Thanos dice or whatever it was.
Or Darkseid, yeah.
Darkseid, yeah.
Darkseid, Flash, Aquaman dice. I was just actually, when we did the show last time, Vince, I had just found those dice,
Yes,
and I was putting them in the dice jar, and I was just like, oh man, we have legitimately never rolled these. these dice have never been rolled, but they're cool looking. So I was like, yeah, they're going in the jar.
Looking at my stash over here on the shelf, I would definitely say Villains and Vigilantes too, though that did probably come out before 85.
Yeah, but that went pretty far in I think. I'm just trying to think of stuff like through the 90s and.
Well, you got the whole Vampire the Masquerade, Hunter.
If you want to get really out there, Riffs.
Yeah.
I was going to say Ninja Turtles was awesome.
Oh, yeah, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
And recently, more recently, Savage Worlds is an innovative system.
Yeah, Savage Worlds.
And it lends for some really cool cinematic role play.
That's DM Glenn's go-to game now, Savage Worlds.
Is it?
Yeah, he loves that game. Off the hook.
Now, Glenn, they're coming out with Flash Gordon for that, right?
They are?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'll have to tell him that because he would probably love to pick that up.
Flash. Yeah. Flash Gordon, and they're kind of doing that whole John Carter-y thing.
Cool.
Yeah.
Let's see. If you want to go into more anime, they have Big Eyes, Small Mouth. If you like Shadowrun, definitely. But that was out before he stopped playing.
We'll get the updated ones because
5th edition. Yeah, it's really good.
Well worth it.
If you like Oriental Adventures, you want to go into Legend of the Five Rings, which is current now with AEG. 4th edition. I don't know if they're going into 5th because I know they're running out of steam for 4th.
Mutants and Masterminds, if you like superheroes.
I would pass on that game.
Really? You didn't like it?
No.
Yeah, in Mutants and Masterminds is Green Ronin has the DC universe.
Yeah, they have
3 supplements for that.
DC Adventures.
Yes.
I believe it's called DC Adventures now.
Then Margaret Weiss briefly had the Marvel licensing, had the a Marvel role-playing game.
I'm annoyed at I'm just so annoyed at Margaret Weiss. Not her personally. She's wonderful. Her gaming company, I'm pissed off at.
Yeah, because they had the license for like a year.
That's what they do. They get a license of like all these cool things, and they just like, meh, we're not going to pay for it anymore, so screw you guys.
It was like a one-shot, and that's it.
No, they had about 4 books. They planned on more, and they were just like, nah, this is too expensive. We're just going to drop it. Like half the other games that they produced, we're going to drop it. We're going to drop it. Yes, I'm bitching. You know what grinds my gears?
This is what grinds my gears.
This is grievances. Oh, wait. Top secret. Top secret. Anyway. That's all I can think of.
Also, and wait, he cannot go without Dungeon Crawl Classics.
Yes.
No, I'd say just take that and throw it in the garbage.
How dare you? How dare you, sir?
I like Dungeon Crawl Classics, too.
I have nothing against Dungeon Crawl Classics. I just don't like the funky dice, that's all. The game itself is kind of cool. The dice are stupid.
Well, you don't have to use the funky dice.
Yes, I know that, but I shouldn't have to translate things. Sorry. The system should have...
Okay.
The system should have...
Okay, just take your D6 and go sit in the corner.
Maybe I will go sit in the corner with my D6, you right, pal?
The D12 gets no respect.
No, it's not the D12. It's the D7, the D13, the D... I'm stupid and I can't have a regular die because I want to be inventive die. No, sorry.
But they found a use for all those bizarre game science dice.
Yes, Goodman Games had tripped over a box that they found in their closet and went, oh, look at all these dice that no one ever uses or heard of. Let's make use of them. But the game system itself is really cool. Dice, dumb.
Okay.
I will give you the game system is cool. Yes. Matt, did you find anything since we've been distracting and just ranting on?
I discovered what the problem was when the Windows search service in Windows 10 is not running. And that is why I cannot search.
Stand by as we have technical difficulties. Matt will figure it out.
Yes.
Experiencing technical difficulties. Please stand by.
We need to throw up that NBC thing when they have technical difficulties on Saturday Night Live with like the little thing.
Yeah, so we'll just throw up the color bars right now on this audio podcast. Yes, because this looks like I'm going to have to go dinking around in like Windows settings to enable search, which should be a basic function.
Don't you have the Cortana search on already, or?
No, actually, I'm like, no, Cortana, you're not going to be examining everything I do, so I disabled that.
Well, then that's the reason why. You rejected a woman, and now her scorn is after you.
Yes.
You will learn, Matt. You will learn with time that you do not do that.
I have no fury that a woman scorned.
Yeah.
Okay. I just turned Cortana on.
All right, baby.
All right. Great. Now, what would you like me to call you? What?
You see, now, if Matt was in that movie AI, it would have turned out like the perfect guy. And the computer would just stalk him and be angry at him the whole time.
Exactly.
Are we still recording?
Yeah, we are.
Yes, we are, because search on. Yes, because we record everything here. We don't have a filter.
No, there's no filter. We're not like other podcasts on this network that just, filter things out. Anyway, so let's head over to our main meat of the show, our table manners or DM rules, whichever one we want to call it this week. Let's call it DM rules instead of table manners because we're going to be talking about running games from a DM point of view here. So, DM rules.
This podcast is brought to you in part by a not very generous grant from Lesser Gnome, publisher of quality role-playing games since last year. Gnomes value high-minded programming just like you. Learn more at their website at www.lessergnome.com.
I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want, but I have a very particular set of skills. Skills I've acquired over a very long career. Skills that make me a nightmare for people like you. I will look for you. I will find you. And I will kill you.
Okay, and now we're here in DM Rules, where today we are going to talk about our inspirations for Vampire Hunter games and building your campaign or your world around those. Vince, you are a fan of Vampire the Masquerade, right?
Yeah, I did start playing that in the late 90s and played for quite a bit of time and did the actual LARP for a little while too.
Dead silence after that.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah, I'm
you
not
can
a
laugh at
fan
me
of
all you
Vampire.
want. I don't care.
You what?
I said you can laugh at me all you want. I don't care. I had fun. That's all that matters to me.
I Vampire LARPed a lot. A friend of mine still run the game.
Oh, okay.
He still has a long, big following for it for Vampire, and then he made his own kind of World of Darkness world, and I know there's a lot of people there's communities built around it. So.
Yep.
The one thing that the LARPs lacked, and I don't know why, and they had the books for it, was hunters. They were books for hunters, but no one ever used them. I don't know. Everyone's like, oh, I gotta be a vampire. I don't want to be a hunter.
Well, that's the thing. Every now and then, and it's kind of become a trope that you've seen in all the LARPing games. You got your vampires running around, and everybody's with the black trench coats on and everything else, and wearing the glasses and slick hair, and who's got a corset on and blah blah blah, and then you get the guy coming in who's dressed like Crocodile Dundee, and let me guess, you're the hunter.
Yeah, Crocodile Dundee.
And it's like, okay. Or the guy who comes in all camos with a bandolier of foam stakes on it at a convention, and you're like, let me guess, Vampire Hunter. And you can't imagine why every character in game jumps on this dude and kills him. I didn't get 30 seconds in game. I can't imagine why.
Because you look like a vampire hunter.
Because you look like a vampire hunter. And you're handing out cards that say Max Domain, Vampire Hunter. So, okay, dummy, how can you figure it out yet? Let me know, and we'll get you another character.
I do like that name, though, Max Domain.
You like that?
Yeah, that was a good one, Sal.
Yeah, that's good.
But yeah, that's... And no matter how cool of a hunter you are, despite what you see in movies, in role-playing games, you against a coven of vampires is not going to work. You're not James Woods. You're not going to make it out of there.
Nice. Referencing John Carpenter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good film, too.
That movie was amazing. I love that movie.
Yeah.
But you're just not going to do it. And that's not going to translate into RPG.
Well, don't forget he also had a whole group of people with him, so it wasn't just him by himself.
But it was basically Red Shirt runs in, gets killed, hotel party, everybody gets slaughtered, and then James Woods and the priest and the Fat Baldwin and all the rest of them.
What?
They all go in and they kill the master, no problem. Bang, bang, boom.
Is that his legal name, Fat Baldwin?
It is.
Actually, it's Shecky.
Shecky, okay.
Shecky Baldwin.
Yeah, well, you can do that, true. You can do a Blade type game, too. I mean, you guys can be like some type of super powered vampire hunter that's kind of partly vampire.
See, that's another thing. I'm surprised that when Blade was hot, and I mean, that was a great movie. Everybody loved the Blade movies. I'm surprised that didn't get its own treatment.
Yeah.
You mean as far as a role-playing game?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I know people homebrew it, but still, I'm surprised. That was one of the biggest shocks I've ever seen. Like, how did that not get its own role-playing?
Matt, you have to put the picture for this show is that picture of Blade standing behind the two Twilight people.
Yes.
That should be the picture for this show, because that is the best picture that someone has ever made.
Now, how... You have a lot of these inspirations, like you're talking Blade and what's the Carpenter film? It's just called Vampires, isn't it? I believe.
Well, yeah, Vampires. You got also From Dusk Till Dawn as well.
From Dusk Till Dawn. Yep. How can you take a lot of those inspirations and some books?
That was an amazing movie.
Yeah, that was really good too. love From Dusk Till Dawn. And how can you adapt some of those ideas into like a D&D setting?
Okay. I'm sorry to jump in on that, but
No, go for it.
I've been doing that exact thing. Speaking of Dusk Till Dawn, there's the TV show on the El Rey network, which it's hit or miss for me. It's okay. But what I'm taking out of it is the Culebras. The Culebras are the snake vampires that Robert Rodriguez researched when making the first movie. And basically they're a snake cult, but they're vampires, and they have the fangs that come down like a cobra's, so like it isn't like, oh, my teeth just grow. These come down, and they have the choice to either inflict the venom and make you a Culebra, or they just suck you dry and they leave you like a husk. And then there are different categories or different powers that some of the Culebras get. One has like spitting cobra venom. The other has wings, like these draconic wings. The other one does like this crushing move, so it's like a python. There's just they've changed the vampire lore, so it's not just, hey, we're vampires, this is what we do. The Culebras can go out in sun, not like they can't go to the beach and hang out, but they can like run from the house to the car, and it'll burn, but they're not going to die immediately. Direct sunlight will destroy them, but some can take it. They vary it, and there's this whole deep thing about how it was, the first Culebra was cursed, and by when conquistadors came over, and it's a whole big backstory for the show, but the lore is just cool to me. I actually like the lore so much. I started looking up stuff on from the old deities and demigods. I was looking at some of the Mexican gods, which I always kind of, aside from Camazotz, he was my favorite bat god, and I just loved him, and he was the demon bat god. He was always the bad guy, perfect. But now I've kind of gone towards the serpent stuff because I love the backgrounds of these guys. I love the idea. To me, vampires would always be better if they were wild, if they were savage and vicious and sometimes feral. 30 Days of Night, one of the most frightening movies ever, because there was no, hey, I'll cut a deal with you guys, or the politics of this, and nobody cared. They just tore your face off if they didn't, if they chose to. And to me, that's what a vampire should be. That's scary. And hunting them was so much harder because not only they were smart and they were tough. So, but it gave you, there was a little bit of a feral thing, which gave you, as a thinking hunter, an advantage. So that was like the only ray of hope in this really dark setting. The book by F. Paul Wilson, Midnight Mass, is similar to that. It's he basically took, he said, I'm tired of all the stuff making vampires sparkly. I'm going back to the roots and making them how vampires were, how we read about them in books, that they're evil, blood-sucking beasts that should be destroyed, Going back to that. I mean, and then still with a little bit of, they could be very wild, like you're saying, and feral sometimes, but in this book, it somehow the vampires take over a good chunk of the world now, and they've taken over a good chunk of the United States, and you're living in a world now where the vampires pretty much rule. and there's some people who are trying to fight the good fight, but it seems like it's all for naught. Well, but I like the idea of you have some of the feral ones, but you also have some that are kind of smart. Right, you have like a master or a higher up vampire who's a little bit more intelligent, who can either lead them or, give them a place to stay. Someone who is who's running the show basically. Yeah. But transferring over to fantasy is so easy. Also, I don't know if you guys are familiar with The Strain.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that is a great take on the vampires. It's more like those Blade vampires, the Strike, Durastreikia, I think it's called. I'm probably destroying that name, but it's with the, their mouths open and they, shoot out that tendril. But like doing that in a D&D, treat it like a plague.
Mm-hmm.
And in D&D, it's even easier because there's so many ways to deliver this disease.
Mm-hmm.
And then you tie it into that, just makes your whole campaign world just a dark, scary place.
I kind of did something like that in my Hackmaster campaign, where it became what I called the Dark World, where basically evil won, and there is one of the major protagonists in the world are vampires. They control certain areas. You'll have a vampire master, and he'll have his horde, and they control a whole region of the world. And they are generally doing the bidding of demons in the world now. They're kind of like their emissaries, if you want to call it that. So yeah, it's a very interesting twist on how you can make your world. Yeah, you could say very dark, but you still maybe have this enclave of good that are just, they're holding on to the threads of good and hope and everything.
Well, that's the thing. In the Strain, they're under horrible odds, but they never give up because they're fighting for their town. They're fighting for New York, and they're fighting for one reason or another, and they never give up. Even when things are down the tubes, man, it's just they still keep going, and I like it because at any given time, a show can just run, a show or a book or a movie runs off the rails when you're like, this is kind of hopeless, but they're going to win, so hooray. Mm-hmm. What these stories have been doing, they make you feel hopeless, but then they give you a realistic ray of light that you're like, oh, okay. And you're still invested in the story. You want to see, are they going to win? Are they going to lose? It's something that I guess as we've all, I want to say, evolved as, a community of people, you want the story to get better. It can't just be Van Helsing kicks the door in, stakes Dracula. Mm-hmm. It's people are kind of beyond that now. And with all the vampire stuff, and again, everybody's go-to is let's just crap on Twilight. I've never seen any of the Twilight movies, and I know sparkly vampires is the thing, whatever. People hate it, blah, blah, blah. They always use that as their but vampires have gotten worn out to death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had their time.
There are a handful of movies that, there's like zombies now. Zombies are everywhere. Yeah. And they just have to keep getting reinvented because people would be bored to tears if you put out another zombie movie that didn't have something.
Well, that's what people don't understand about The Walking Dead, to be honest. And I know Matt's not a fan of that show, and I'll bring it up real brief here because we're not talking about zombies. But that show is just, people are like, oh, I don't want to watch another show about zombies. Right. It's not about the dead. It's about the people dealing with each other during this crisis. So
yeah,
right. The Walking Dead in The Walking Dead are not the zombies. The Walking Dead are the survivors.
Right.
Yeah. And a lot of times you'll see in that series, and you could probably take the same trope if you're dealing with vampires, is with whatever regular humans are left, they generally are just as dangerous, if not more so, than the zombies or / vampires.
Perfect example. Daybreakers. Daybreakers was that movie, that exactly what you're talking about. Kind of like a Walking Dead situation. The whole world is vampires, and there's only a few select humans left, and the vampires are dying out slowly. It was with Ethan Hawke.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I heard about it, yeah.
Sam Neill, too, right?
Yes. It came out in, quick Google here, 2009. Yeah, Ethan Hawke, Sam Neill. It was a really good movie, actually. Really good beginning, middle, end kind of blue, but still a good movie.
Right.
Definitely picking up.
And then also when we're talking about vampires, we're mostly talking about the Western European lore of a vampire.
Yeah, you're looking
from a very narrow view of what a vampire is, because when you expand it to the vampire lore of the world, there's a little bit of everything. And if you want to run a vampire campaign, I think you should take a look at, there's a issue of Dragon. It's Dragon 25. They have an article on the variety of vampires. The one that I like the best is the Saxony version of the vampire. It's a butterfly that sits on your chest and suffocates you.
Oh, that's great.
Yes, it's called an Alp. And the butterfly attacks day and night. It settles on your chest and suffocates you. And it can call 10 to 100 regular butterflies.
Nice.
And throw one sleep spell per 24 hours. So you're trying to hunt a vampire that's a butterfly. To defeat it, you have to find the corpse that it last laid on and suffocated and put a lemon in its mouth. Otherwise, you have to destroy the body. If you destroy the body, then it just has to find another body. And then it's like, or the Philippine version of the vampire, that's a floating head with entrails.
Was it the Pengalang? Is that it?
Yeah, sort of like that. Sounds like.
It's
Pangolin or Pengalang?
It's like the Anna non-gel. It's like Anna Angel.
It sounds like the one out of Fiend Folio, though.
Yeah, it's very similar to that.
Yeah, it gets bloated when it eats up, and then it's all like bloody and squishy as it floats. But then,
right.
Yeah, but then when it's hungry, it's just a kind of a really sad floating head.
Yes.
That weeps. Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Right. And then there's out of Portugal, there's the Bressa. It's a woman by day, bird at night. And otherwise it's a vampire. So you can even integrate. All vampire hunting doesn't have to take place at night, because there are vampires that are active during the day as well. So if you want to have like a vampire world, I would suggest pulling that article out and having the different varieties of the vampire, because otherwise everyone would be like, get the wooden stakes, get the mirror, get the stereotypical trope. There's one out of Brazil, the Lobishuman. I don't know. My enunciation today is horrible. It looks like a small, stumpy hunchback monkey.
Okay.
Monkey vampire.
Oh, great.
With yellow face, bloodless lips, black teeth, bushy beard, and plush-covered feet. So that is another vampire you can have sucking the blood of people in your world. So, yeah, expand the mythos of a vampire, and I think it'll also solve some of the problems of seeming like a tired-out trope.
Yeah. But as far as hunters, I think when we played in the World of Darkness setting for tabletop, it turned into 3 hours of shopping, basically. That's what how it ran. What? 3 hours of shopping, going out and then getting foiled because because the guy running the game had a character that has been around for, I guess, the past 500 or 600 million games he's run, and this bad guy is the ongoing bad guy. So we had to take our run at him, which we knew we were going to fail because this guy has been around forever. We got to kill a bunch of his minions and got nowhere near to killing him. So, like, that was my first experience with vampire hunters, and I was like, oh, well, that was fun. Like, okay, sure. So, I don't know. Again, I think we've said that before, Vince. It's sometimes when you get exposed to something, it'll be your first exposure, and that'll flavor your view on that game or that particular power or whatever it is you're experiencing for the first time. That'll kind of color how you feel about it.
I've always said try things at least more than once, and I've done that a lot. So it was when I first played Vampire for the first time, because I played it with. So I gave it another try, and it got a little bit better over time. So it always first opinion, always
Oh yeah, that's generally what people think that Vampire Hunter games are. Either that or Buffy. Those are your two go-tos. It's like we're going to stock up and we're going to have the van full of silver nitrate and grenades and underworld, and we'll have gun fu and slow motion bullet time, and that's what we're going to do. Or we're going to be campy and goofy and be the Scoobies in a van. So like those seem to be the two Vampire Hunter go-tos for gaming, and even, you know, for TV now especially.
I've been thinking about, as we're talking about this, you know, how we can translate, how some of the stuff would translate if you go into almost a vampire themed D&D campaign, or, you know, something almost entirely themed, where at least the major baddies are vampires. And I would think how like some of the character classes would be treated. Paladins obviously would be much into demand, along with that is clerics. You would think, because you're fighting so much undead. Paladins and good aligned clerics will be definitely something that you'll want if looking at as a kingdom. They're trying to survive.
But now as vampires, like automatically those are the two top hunted non-vampire classes. Like any vampire who had any intelligence would automatically want those killed.
Yeah.
Right. But those, I would think there'd be like a lot of emphasis as far as those character classes. And magic users, there'd be definitely a lot more offensive spells than in the past. And I think magic users would morph into something a little more... not only would they be crafting their magic skills, but I think you would see a lot of more mechanical sort of defenses, or, you know, something that they would make even the magic users even more survivable at low level. You know, you might even want to make it to where magic users might be able to broaden their use of weapons a little bit. Maybe they can use a short sword, or maybe they can use like the hand crossbow or something like that. Because of this, you know, in order for magic users to survive, they've had to adapt, you know, because of all the vampires. And I think I talked about this in another show when we talked about like certain types of undead. I always thought that if there was going to be a rift in the world of undead, it would always be between the liches and vampires.
Yeah.
And it'd be very interesting how that would play out, because you would think that they would be both vying for power, you know?
There's a Pathfinder game that I got off of RPG Now, Abaddon. It's a world setting. And basically this comet hits and this horrible plague besets this world. And it's undead. The whole place is undead. It's overrun by undead. The undead show up, and that's the new world. And there are pockets of freedom fighters. But now the undead automatically don't slaughter everyone.
Mm-hmm.
They're smart enough. There's liches and stuff and vampires and things that are smart enough to keep cattle. So now they're keeping the humans as cattle.
Uh-huh, okay.
And, you know, you basically, you can run a daily day, you know, you guys do what you got to do to survive because they're letting you, you know, but now that vampire is the town lord. That lich is the fiefdom king, you know, he's in charge of the fiefdom. And it's basically, they let you go back to, you know, quote unquote normal life so you can run a game. But there's this horrible, horrible backdrop of all that's going on. And one of the conflicts, because now once the humans fall in line, these guys have nothing to do but to bicker with each other. And
right.
one of the big bickers is a vampire versus a lich.
Uh-huh.
Because the lich wants more magical stuff, which is located on this vampire's land. And the vampire's kind of like, well, no, you've already picked out where you wanted, and I picked this place, and this is what I need. So now that's their thing. That's their gripe. And it's the vampire versus the lich. And the thing is, now the vampire in the game, they, despite being quote unquote civilized, these guys are like horrible tyrants and they kill people and, you know, this thing. But for the most part, they're civilized as, why am I going to kill these people for no reason? They're my cattle. There are still basically the feral vampires and the feral zombies who are out there. So if you're out in the woods, you're going to get attacked by stuff regardless. But it was one of the things that you just saying it just made me think of it. They also do the vampires with the basically the blade open mouth jaw thing, like the predator face, I guess, with the, you know, the big tendril coming out of the mouth as the sucker, and that's just to change up the vampire thing. But now the intelligent ones are all very, you know, basically Dracula.
Yeah.
You got the, you know, they wear the nicest clothes. They're the counts, the regal royalty of the undead.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got the liches who also still wear these really nice clothes, but they're just, you know, their face is destroyed, or, you know, they're missing half their skull. So I don't know. It's just the idea of the vampire versus the lich is always, I thought that was always a cool idea. And then it made me think of Abaddon, which now go and they take that to the nth degree and they kind of work that down to the most minute detail, which, again, if you're going to run your campaign world that way, you're going to have to take those things into consideration.
Yeah. It might lead up to situations if the party is, you know, they're playing the vampire hunters, and you have that sort of, amongst the undead, you have that, the lich and the liches and the vampires are at times warring with each other almost. You can almost use that to your advantage, like the whole the enemy of my enemy is my friend sort of thing. You know, you might find yourself allying with the liches, or worse off, than allying with the vampires that take over the liches. Maybe they're getting too powerful. So you could almost turn that on its head.
Basically, you can take Red Dawn.
Yeah.
Make Red Dawn a D&D campaign and just exchange Russians for vampires.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, that's actually a good way of doing it. Yeah. Wow. I never thought of it that way. That you could do it that basic premise. Wow. That would be really cool. That'd be really something. And then you would introduce things like, you know, maybe lesser vampires. I think Matt found an article on that, didn't you?
Right. In Dragon, one of them, I have like 4 different dragons open because, believe it or not, in Dragon Magazine there was a lot of stuff on vampires.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was 126. Let's see. No, 126 is where you can get the stats for actual Dracula.
Yeah, like Vlad Tepes, which I was reading. He's really bad, dude.
Yeah, you don't want to deal with
as far as D&D stat wise is.
Right. But if you want the lesser vampire, that was actually in Dragon 30 on page 9. And it's basically falling under the example of, like, if a white kills a figure, it's like half strength under its control. So basically, like the vampire would make, when it makes another vampire, you're not a full vampire. You're kind of that lesser vampire as you learn to become vampire.
Right.
So it has the ability for that. And then it's like the important difference between the two is that the full vampire has that strong connection to the negative material plane. The lesser really doesn't.
Right.
Because it has the free will to gain. It has the ability to gain access to it if it wants to go all the way with the vampire, but they're not all the way there yet. So you can go and that article also goes into talking about the different things, because vampires will also have the ability to summon their creatures. So that's something else you want to think about when dealing with your vampire hunters, because they're not just going to be battling vampires. They're going to be
battling their minions.
Yes, because vampires like minions doing their bidding more so than them doing the work themselves. Usually they'll have their charmed humans, because vampires don't turn everyone into a vampire. They don't want the competition.
They got their Renfields.
Exactly.
The buggy Renfield.
And the more powerful the vampire, the more Renfields.
Yep.
So now, as DMs, have you guys had the player who wants to play the Dhampir in your D&D game? Those half vampires?
Oh, Dhampir, yeah. No, actually, no.
No,
Really?
I had not.
No,
I thought that was only a second edition thing, to be honest. Was it a first edition? I don't remember offhand.
Well, now it's been translated into every edition. Every edition has their own version of a half vampire. You know, not under the control of a thrall. You know, not the thrall of a greater vampire, but you know, the half vampire.
I don't think I've ever had anyone do that for me ever.
Wow.
You have, I assume.
Yeah. Well, it's when you know. Again, as soon as things come out, people are like, "Oh, I want to try that. I want to do that." Okay, and then all it turns into is, you know, I get to be broody guy who has to go hide to go eat because I'm starving and I need blood and this and that. And then, of course, they do something bad and you're like, okay, you realize that you are, you know, chaotic good. And even chaotic good, this is really bad that you're doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, okay, well, all right. Well, this is now gotten out of control. And so now we have to go back or they're like, oh, I'm just going to make a new character. Okay, terrific.
So they're kind of like Blade in a way?
They're
half players?
Yeah. And it's basically, for D&D, they give you some boosted stats. So you get your fix of, you know, I'm different than everybody else. But in the end, it all, you know, it cuts out because you can't stand, you're basically a drow.
Oh, great.
That's what it comes down to. You can't stand in exposed sunlight too long. Because it's not going to set you on fire, but it irritates you, and eventually you'll start losing, you know, your strength and your con and everything else.
And then you dual wield scimitars and
right, and everybody's you know, because you have a pumped up deck, so you could do backflips as you jump off of the thing and double scimitar onto your puma and ride away into the sunset.
Poor puma.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's a vampire puma.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, another movie inspiration. You can always look at the Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. That was a good movie for inspiration.
I've not watched that. I've avoided that as much as I could.
It's really not that bad, Nick. I actually really enjoy the movie.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, it's not
Is it just
that bad.
good popcorn munching fun?
Yeah,
I guess?
yeah. Don't take it for like, oh, she's not historically accurate to what Lincoln actually did. So, I mean, Lincoln obviously did not have a secret room with a chest that he went out and hunted vampires with.
No, that was FDR.
Yeah, that's correct. But no, it's a good like kind of look at a different alternate history. Wow, Lincoln was actually a badass type guy that went out and hunted vampires before he became president. So.
And that was based off of a book.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, you read the book, right?
Yeah, I read the book and actually enjoyed the book more than the movie.
Did it follow closely with the movie, or
it followed closely? I think the book just does a better job of executing the story. Because when I first picked up the book, I thought it was going to be some wacky, over-the-top comedy. It's not. It plays Abraham Lincoln hunting vampires completely straight.
Wow.
And the humor is in the fact Abraham Lincoln's fighting vampires, and so it doesn't have any other comedy in it.
Okay.
And as for an alternate history story, I actually thought of you throw that in like Deadlands.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there you go.
The Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter Deadlands, or even Aces and Eights.
Okay.
Either one, you could run it and it would be great.
That'd be cool.
But just that type of the vampires, they exist, but they're hidden in there's those that want to coexist with humans, and they go and they suck their blood of the animals and leave the humans alone. And there's others that see, in the case of Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, they see the slaves as being the source of food.
Ooh.
So Abraham Lincoln wants to free the slaves so he can free them from the vampires.
Oh, wow.
So
cool. I'm gonna have to watch it. Now that I remind myself it was based off a book. Another one they took Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah, there's Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies. And then they did another one. It was something in Sea Monsters. Another one of those type. Something in Sea Monsters. It's out of that classic book with a monster thrown in.
Little Women?
Oh, Little Women. It wouldn't surprise me if they did it. What was it? Sea monsters.
And plus, you got the classic
Sense and Sensibility and Sea Monsters.
Sense and Sensibility and Sea Monsters. Yes, I did see that on the bookshelf one time. But and you can't ignore the classic Bram Stoker Dracula. That's a great book. So
Yeah, that is a great book. I actually have 2 different editions of that book. One, a shelf fancy black lines, gold trimmed, like red trim type thing going on. I also have another one that's black leather with red blood trim on it as well.
Nice.
Yeah, I have 2 of them. They're really nice looking books. I had to pick them up when I saw them.
yeah.
Now, have you seen that? Was it Dracula Unleashed?
Dracula Unleashed.
It was kind of the new one where it tells about.
Yeah.
He's a good guy. He's a really good guy. Now,
He's just misunderstood.
Yeah, she's
Right.
misunderstood.
it wasn't a terrible movie,
But
it's a very good resource.
Okay.
For the simple reason, I loved the fact that little flavor stuff. It was the little flavor stuff that really made it a big deal. It was him turning into bats and like being able to, go from this place to this, basically do like a forest walk or, a shadow walk, but he turned into bats and then reformed as bats here. Like little things like that. The fact that there was the lore of there was something in a cave that lived forever. It was the immortal, and it was Dracula before he was, and it gave him the power because he asked for it. And it was kind of it took something horrible and bestial and pretty much, what everybody in the movie called the devil, and made it a sympathetic thing at the end, at the transition for Vlad of, well, I'm giving this to you and I'm sorry I'm giving it to you. And now you're a thrall, like now you're a part of this. You're part of this horrible legacy, but now you're immortal. So, good luck with that. So like it was a cool thing to make for a campaign would be amazing, because now you have this tortured hero who is now a villain in everybody else's eyes. So you bust out this NPC who is like a Vlad, who is impaling these guys and has such hatred towards this one type of people or a race or whether it be orcs or halflings or elves. And all this guy wants to do is just go and he's murdering these elves by like the droves, and they can't stop him because he's super powerful. And, he has the ability to control weather to a degree, and he has these other minions who run in, these fast, super strong minions just run in, and these 300 minions can take out this 2,000-man army. And you go in and your PCs show up, and all they know is that this bloodthirsty dude is impaling elves on all these sticks outside this town, and this guy's got to be stopped.
Yeah.
And then it turns out maybe that the elves, had slaughtered his family when he was just trying to, work out a deal and keep peace. He had stopped. It was just, there's a whole layer of a movie in that movie, the layers of it, of who this guy was beforehand, lends to a great campaign if you want to run that kind of campampain.
That actually is really cool. I'm going to have to check that out now. I was kind of wary. I was sitting on a fence, and I was like, do I really want to see this? But now, because it brings up the one question I've had is like, how are the other demi-human races deal with vampires? How do the halflings, dwarves, elves, gnomes, whoever, how do they deal with a vampire threat? How do they, how does their culture, society play into all that?
Or like a vampire elf. A vampiric elf.
Geez.
You know what I mean? Like it's almost negligible, because who would ever think about it? Because you're like, oh, he's a vampire, right? I don't have to make him anything else.
Well, remember, there is a drow vampire elf in Vault of the Drow.
Right.
Remember
but that's what I'm
one?
saying. Like, yeah, that was how long
and
ago?
his companion's a succubus. So
yeah. So like, to me, it keeps things from being dull of the same old. Okay, well, this guy, I'm going to run in and we have to kill this guy. Now you give your PCs something to think about. Give your PCs a reason to go, well, are we going to stake them? At least, even if they take 10 minutes in the game to talk to each other around the campfire before they go out and go, well, listen, I'm reading this book of lore here, and this guy apparently was not so bad before he became this thing. Well, can we change him? So now, can we change him back? Now that'll be immediately what they go to. And they're like, we really have no idea. And then somebody show up and say, well, maybe there could be a way for you to change him, but you'd have to do these other side quests in order to do that. So now, are they going to take the time to go do side quests, or are they just going to still go up to the castle, kick the door in, and try to kill him?
Oh, I just had a really good idea here. At least I think it is. Now, how talking about all the demi-human races. Mm-hmm. How does the vampire curse, if you want to call it the curse, or the plague, affect those races? And I just thought of a way how maybe because it affects maybe the different races different ways. It's still a form of vampirism, but this is where you could take that Dragon Magazine article out of issue 25, Variety of Vampires, and you take, I don't know, for example, there's the one vampire myth out of Crete and Rhodes called the Kata Kano, where it's always grinning with very white teeth. It spits blood, which can cause horrible burns. It can charm at -2. And maybe that's the twist on maybe that's how the katakano, the basic idea about it, maybe that's what happens to dwarves when they're affected with vampirism. That's what they turn into. You know, you're still going to have your different variety of vampires because of how the vampire curse or plague affects that demi-human race.
Yeah, I think that's what they need to do, that they need to keep changing and keep things different.
Yeah, and I think that's a way you could keep it kind of different.
Yeah, the minute you start letting everything just be the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe when a halfling is infected by the vampire curse, he has a congested face, blood red skin, and it can cause epilepsies, and it's active both day and night. But that's the Serbian myth called the Vlakodlak, but you can call it something else. But that's what happens when a halfling is infected by vampirism, and all the different ways you got to kill them. It's different with every race. So that's like what you're saying. It's a twist on the vampire myth. You can introduce different versions of vampires, like of the myths from our world, but you say, okay, now this myth is going to be for the halflings, and this is for the elves, dwarves, and you go right on it. Maybe even for orcs, it's different, you know? So,
yeah, like, and I think for vampire hunters, I think keeping that in your game, keep that as innovative as you would your vampires. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, when you have your hunters, not everybody has to be, you know, a super shiny cleric paladin in order to fight a vampire. Not everybody has to be the awkward professor carrying bottles and, you know, 1,000 books, dropping it, letting the fighter let the fighter do it, and him being all you know, scatterbrained and you know, that sort of way.
And like I was saying earlier, maybe the different classes have evolved into dealing with this vampire threat. Like I said, the magic user, maybe they've had to learn to use different types of weapons, more weapons, and maybe they have more offensive spells now, or maybe rangers have become more. I don't know. They become more precise when using bow weapons.
Well, how about this like for that. Vampire change? Instead of blood, they feed off of mana. So they only go after magic users.
Ooh, that's nasty.
Anybody with magic, it'll work the same way as a vampire. And they say, you have those guys who are like, I can smell your blood. Have these guys like, I can smell your mana. I can smell your magic.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's how you get your vampire Lich War, who collects more magic and magical power than a lich.
Nice.
There you go, Matt. Now you're talking.
Right.
And the different varieties of vampires, you got all those out there. Mm-hmm. They're all killed different ways, and your vampires hunters out there have to find out how each different type is killed, so that's not the same way all the time. They're always kind of one step behind the curve, you know?
Right. Yeah, you could also steal from the video game Castlevania too.
Oh my God.
Yes, especially Castlevania 2, where the entire game was going around collecting the body parts of Dracula so you could bring him back to life to kill him.
Okay.
Yeah, basically to permanently exterminate Dracula, you had to gather his body parts up and resurrect him so you could.
So they're artifacts, sort of like Vecna.
Right.
Nice.
Oh man.
So now think of that in D&D terms, which equals we put it all together. He gets away. Damn it.
Now what do we do?
Yeah.
Or perhaps you hear of someone else is trying to raise him, like a cult of Dracula or something. So
There you go.
so
Okay,
now
here you go.
A vampire.
Oh my God,
cult.
here you go. You got the guy who hires you and says, listen, we want to destroy him. You have to get all his parts, bring him back together and bring him to me. So you have them do that. And that's a pretty good quest in itself. They bring him back. They give it to you. You give them the money and you're like, guys, thanks. That was amazing, suckers. And then he raises him and now he's alive. And now the players are like, go.
Yeah.
We have to go clean this up.
Oh man, that would be good. Oh, there's some really cool ways you can twist the whole vampire thing and put it into a D&D campaign. Some really awesome stuff.
See, and here I was hating on vampires.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Sal. Should give it a better chance next time, Sal.
I will.
Yo,
I'm
what
sorry. I've just ordered 16 different versions of my Vampires the Masquerade hardcovers.
Hey.
So,
You know what? You probably can find 16 different versions of the Vampire the Masquerade hardcover. You're right.
Probably
I've
good.
seen it. It was ridiculous.
probably all at half-price books on the same shelf.
You know what? That is probably next to here in Texas the second largest collection I've seen at half price books.
Same in Cincinnati.
Is it right?
Fourth edition is fourth edition the first.
No, actually, it is not. The first is usually Castles and Crusades or RuneQuest.
Really?
RuneQuest, really?
Yeah.
Man,
Castles and
I'd have
Crusades, huh?
Well, I could definitely say North Texas. I can't say about all of Texas, but North Texas, I've been to quite a few. There's like a, as we call here in North Texas, the Half Price Books Trail that you can go on, and there's like 20 stores that you can go to in a day, all in the area, and all the shelves are always filled with those books.
Yeah, right now the thing in Cincinnati is your Warhammer fantasy books. Those have been purged by people.
Really?
Yeah, well, they completely redid the game, and basically all your books and rules are even more worthless than the normal, hey, we're revising your armies. They completely changed the game so it's no longer mass combat. It's more, you only need 5-6 miniatures now as opposed to 200 to play the game.
That's nice.
Yeah, basically they blew the entire world up in lore and restarted it over.
See, because Warhammer Fantasy used to be one of the Warhammer Fantasy role playing game was one of the coolest games I played that wasn't D&D back in the day.
Me too. Yeah.
You know, like somebody was like, "Do you want to play Warhammer?" And I'm like, "No, man, that's not D&D." And then they were like, "Here, try it." So I tried
because
it.
the background was so cool.
Yeah, not only the background, but then it was okay. I want to be a dwarf. I'm going to be a berserker, but now I can get to be a troll slayer. I can get to be a giant slayer, but I got to work to get there.
You
so
had
it
a
gave
career
you a goal,
path.
right? It gave you a goal. So, like, to me, that's what made it so innovative, and I thought the game was great.
Yeah.
And and Matt, those games, the old Warhammer, those games.
Yes.
Or are you talking about Warhammer Fantasy just for the minis game?
The minis. Every
Warhammer
now and then,
Fantasy
though,
Battle.
the fantasy battle.
Oh, okay.
For the miniatures game. We do occasionally, though, see the actual role-playing game. And I've played the 40K version of the role-playing game.
I love 40K. I used to love it. I'm just annoyed by it. But now the 40K for Death Watch and that stuff, to me, it lacks longevity because I want to play a Space Marine. Well, you kind of can't. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, What my group, we do short little adventures with it, then we'll go on and do something else. We don't actually run long campaigns. It's more like, hey, well, for the next like 3-4 games, we'll play this, and then we move on to something else.
Because not for nothing, I love Marines. The Space Marines are great. They're not really exciting people. They don't do anything. They're for the Emperor. We go eat, we sleep, and then we fight. That's pretty much your life.
Yeah.
So,
In Only War, there are more variants. Like we were the part of the ones you could say were more like the Russians with the fuzzy hats.
Come on, work brain. Yeah, it's shot.
Yeah. I'm the same way.
They're Imperials.
The Imperials, yes.
Right. And those are the guys like the Kachan guys.
Right. The ones where you go to try to requisition equipment. You may get it or you may not. You could actually, hey, we need some explosives for this mission. Okay, you open up the package. It's a bunch of desert gear when you're on a snow world. It happens. Because apparently their accountants and logistics are horrible. So that was one thing I found amusing.
And that's the thing. There's in a game where there's no fear. Like a vampire up against a Space Marine. Nobody's fearing it. There is no fear involved. It's like, oh, cool, that guy has teeth. Shoot him. Shoot him in the face until there's nothing left but teeth.
Bolter to the head.
Exactly.
Well, I think we totally steered off course.
Yeah, the show's pretty much wrapped up now.
Yeah. Somehow we got on the Warhammer, but hey, cool. It's still a fun game. There's another must-have. Another must-have in that guy in his collection is Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay.
Yeah, because there were vampire lords in that, though.
So yes, there was. There you go. There's how it ties in. You got it.
Also, Hackmaster for that guy too. He should look at.
There you go. Yep. Thank you.
Not the new one. I was a fan of the tongue-in-cheek old one.
Thank you. I am too, for the win.
And I told that to Jolly. I said I was a fan. I told him last year at Gen Con when I tried the new one. I said this isn't what I remembered from the old Hackmaster. And he says, well, we're redoing it. We redid it. I'm like, oh, well, okay.
Yeah, because they.
And he's like, you're not happy? I'm like,
Yeah, lost the licensing from Wizards, but that's a whole other thing. Anywho.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's going to wrap up the show this week. rfistaff@gmail.com, or you can find us on Facebook or G+ by searching RFI shows. And we'll be back in a couple weeks. Thanks, guys. Keep it original, keep it old school. Good night.
Good night. Good night.
Night, everybody.
The Roll for Initiative podcast is a production of Wild Games Productions in association with D20Radio.com. You can visit us at RFIpodcast.com or contact us on our forums at OSRgaming.org or even by calling us at 570-865-4210. This podcast is produced for entertainment purposes only. All other uses are prohibited. And remember, if your magic missile spell doesn't automatically hit, you're playing the wrong edition. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Roll for Initiative.
Are you enjoying the show you're listening to right now? Want to help support the show? Why not head over to the Patreon site, patreon.com/WGP. That's patreon.com/WGP. And help support the network for as little as $1.50 a month. That's right, $1.50 a month goes a long way. Thank you.